What's up again, YouTube? Quadzilla here, and this will be a video series on working on my 2016 YXZ1000R SE. To give a little backstory, I bought this YXZ with 500 miles on it from a dealer out of Kentucky, and I've had some odds and ends, just miscellaneous issues with it constantly. It's been something. I've done a radiator relocate because of overheating issues, and then found that the radiator cap that Yamaha put on these things are plastic, so it was warped and corroded and had holes in it. It was letting air in the system, and I ended up doing the full relocate to the bed, which I made a bracket, which there is another video on that along with dimensions and everything else for your stock radiator. I still had issues with it overheating after doing this. So I'd taken the thermostat out, same thing still. I would ride it and it would start bubbling into the overflow tank. It'd start overflowing the overflow tank. And after a lot of diagnosis, I took it into the shop, had them run diagnostics on it, and well, they told me nothing was wrong. Check engine light on, but they said there's nothing wrong. They couldn't find anything. So just on a whim, after going through sensors, I did a compression test and the compression was fine. I swapped the radiator cap with one I got off of a Honda Pioneer I got here still. Fixed the problem. One day it just happened to be warmed up and I took the cap off to try and figure out what's going on, and it seemed real soft, and come to find out it's just a little $10 radiator cap was causing a lot of those problems. But one other problem I've been having is if it sits, you crank it over, it won't fire. You can crank it all day and it won't do nothing, which is weird. I've replaced the fuel pump, so there's a brand new fuel pump in it and everything. And I was going to start replacing sensors, and I got talking with one guy on one of the forums, and he was like, hey, pull your spark plugs out. This is my, back note, I've replaced the spark plugs in this thing now 3 times. I have 550 miles or so on it. I've only put 50 miles on this thing since I bought it in April. They were damp. You can crank and all day it won't fire, but then I can give it a quick shot of ether. It'll fire right up and runs fine once it's running. So after doing several discussions and everything else, I just one day tore off the back end and ripped out the fuel injectors and ran through an ultrasonic cleaner. Fixed the problem. It went about a month, no problem. Started doing it again. Same thing, I pull the plugs out, they would look damp. So what I suspect is going on is the injectors, when it's sitting, like one of them's just got like some sediment or something, and it's just like a hairline crack, and it's open and it's dripping inside there, just fouling the plugs out enough to where it's not going to fire. So, courtesy of Power Sports Nation, if you can read that backwards, I guess, they had a set, which I looked at the part numbers to make sure they were all matching off the same unit. $30 a piece. Yes, they're a used set, but if I don't know if this is gonna fix it or not, this will tell me. I can put these in. If it fixes the problem, then I can maybe start looking into either getting my old set rebuilt or look at a new set, which new ones are $120 a piece from World of Power Sports up in Decatur, Illinois. It's like OEMHondaPart.com or ServiceHonda.com. I don't remember which it is, but which they're one of the best I've found for parts, and they're just up the road here, about an hour from my location. So yeah, we will be doing a video. I will be tearing the back end off the YXZ, and we'll be swapping those out in the fuel rail and see if that fixes our problem. Stay tuned. All right, YouTube, I'm back. Well, what it looks like here how much you can see. Right there's my fuel line coming in. So if I disconnect that, I should have one bolt, you can see right there. And then there's another one back up over in here somewhere. I'd done this once before and I'd ripped the entire bed off of this thing, and I'm trying to avoid that because that took me several hours. So if I disconnect that, undo the 2 bolts, and disconnect the 3 wires to the injectors, that fuel rail should lift out. The only trick's going to be is if all the gaskets that are on the end of these things, right here, if all those come out with it. Because last time I did it, one of them stuck, and you can see one of these here doesn't have it on there. So that means whatever machine they took these off of as the donor, it's stuck in that one too. So that could be the only potential pain in the rear end, is getting a pickup in there and pulling it out. But the alternative is undoing all kinds of bolts through this thing, taking my radiator loose, all my bed bolts here, the connectors up in here, all this crap, pulling this in and lifting it up out of there. And that sounds like that's going to be a royal cluster. So we're going to try it without, and we'll see what happens. All right, YouTube, I got them switched over. It is a royal pain in the butt getting this thing out without disassembling everything, but it's also a real pain in the butt to disassemble all this plastic. So when this comes off, this is just resting in there. You'll have 2 bolts, one on either end, and this is what they look like. So the bolt is going to be in your plastic rail like that, and this is your spacer for down below. You got to be careful when you pull this off that you're holding on to this before you pull that bolt out, otherwise it's going to disappear into the engine bay monster and probably never see it again. I had to take my passenger seat out so I could get back behind here to get to the back bolt of the airbox. Then there's another bolt right there to the airbox, and then I had to loosen on the throttle body so I could lift that up and just back it up a little bit. And here's your fuel line. You just lift it up to where it stops, and then you can pull it right out of there. There is clips, so you gotta get a screwdriver in there, but you gotta get those clips to release to pull it out. Wiring wise, like I showed earlier, you'll have the 3 wires here, and then there were some other miscellaneous sensors and stuff on the top of the motor I took off just so it could give me a little bit more room to get my hand through there. But yes, it isn't an easy task, that's for sure. You can see the wires here that I loosened up to get them up out of the way. And then right up in there, let's see where we at. Yeah, up top there. So there's a little hole right up in there that your injector sits in. So you'll have 3 of those, and you got this one right here in the middle. It's a tight fit, man. It kind of sucks, but it can be done. I was curious if it could be done without ripping this whole ass end apart, and it looks like it, but it's a pain in the butt. So unless you got a temper that you could control, you probably don't want to do it this way. There was a lot more room when I took all this stuff off, when I took them out and put them in the ultrasonic later, but it also took me like 4 hours. So, and this back piece was a pain in the butt because you had to squeeze it and everything to get it to in here and around the oil tank. Man, it was horrible. I really didn't want to do that again, but anyways, I'll post when I get a little further. All right, YouTube. So here's how those bolts go. And you can see you pick it up, those pieces are going to fall off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this RTV silicone. I'm going to put it here on the bolt. I'm going to mush that in there, and then that should give it just enough tension where it works almost like a glue to hold it while I get it in place to tighten it up. All right, here we go. A little bit of RTV silicone, and you can see I can bounce this, whatever. It's not going to fall off. And even if the silicone causes that stuff to stick later, who cares? But it's just going to spin and kind of hold on the bolt until you take the rail off again. So we'll give her a shot. All right, YouTube, the silicone trick worked. So you can see, I guess, got the bolt in, injectors are in. The other one's like right in there. The other's back that way, but they are bolted and seated. I gotta hook the fuel line up yet. And we're going here. You can see the bolt right there. That's to the back side of the fuel rail. This one, where's my finger? Right there. That is the one in the back. So I was able to use a nut driver, 1/4 inch extension, and the 8mm socket to get to that one to tighten it up. All right, got all the wiring hooked back up. That fuel line's kind of a pain in the butt on the other end. I still got the block off fitting I got to put on there from my air induction, or the air pump setup, eliminator. I got to tighten up the boots to the throttle bodies. Once that's done, I can put the 2 bolts back in the air cleaner, put the air cleaner back together, and start slapping panels back on it, and then fire her up. So this should hopefully fix it. Like I said, the issue I had was if this thing sat for more than about 6 or 8 hours, then it wouldn't fire back up. Unless I gave a shot of ether into the intake between the seats. Just a quick, couple boop boop, and then it was ready to go. Now these injectors that I took out, they don't look horrible, but mind you, I did put these through an ultrasonic, and that one's already got goop kind of on the shaft. I know that doesn't matter, but if that's telling you what's going on the inside, this could be the one that was leaking. Or that one's got a little bit too, I guess. This one's fairly clean. The insides still look pretty dirty. So these will end up just being a core, or I'll pitch them or something, I don't know. The other ones weren't near that dirty, but being this YXZ only had 500 miles on it when I bought it in April, and it's a 2016, right there is telling you this thing's 9 years old. So 8 years of its life only got 500 miles on it. So it had a lot of sitting that was going on, and you don't know what kind of gas. Ethanol is nasty stuff in any of these machines. So if you got the choice, get non-ethanol fuel or get racing fuel that don't have ethanol. Yeah, it's more expensive, but your machine will love you. I mean, you look at the hardware stores, all that gas you buy that's in the can, it's so expensive because it's non-ethanol gas. But the reason that is because that ethanol gums up all your small engines, your carburetors. I know I go through a carburetor a year with my weed eater when I was using that fuel until the good canned fuel came out. So anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. I'm going to get the sucker put back together before this rain comes in, and probably go and get some dinner. All right, YouTube, I'm back on again. So now all the wiring's done. I got the vacuum cap up in there from the air injection. Everything underneath here is completely done. And I got the top sealed up. Took me probably about 15 minutes to get the bolt on the front of the air cleaner on the inside of the cab, but it's on. That's all that's left is the inside of the cab, and fire it up. which it will be this trim piece. Get a couple of these pieces in here, and then at that point the seat can be bolted back in and the centerpiece can be put back on, and then we're done. I'm probably about 2 hours into it. All right, YouTube, Quadzilla here again. I just wanted to give an update. I did put the injectors back in, and when I went to fire it back up, it did not fire back up right away. So after doing that work, as frustrated as this thing's had me, there's a few choice words, and I didn't think I should have that on the videos if I could help it. But I did give it a shot of ether. It fired up. I let it run for about 15 minutes and shut it off. Come out the next morning, it was doing the same thing again, and got back on the forums talking with multiple people, and one guy suggested disconnecting the temperature sensor. So I did that, of all things, and lo and behold, it fired up. Wouldn't rev up or nothing. It did fire up though. I hooked the sensor back up. Fired right up. It's been running fine since. So I don't know if it's got some kind of an override to where if the temperature sensor is disconnected, it won't send any fuel. I'm thinking, okay, maybe those fuel rails still had some decent fuel in those throttle bodies or something. But here it's been 2 days and haven't had an issue. But long term, we'll just have to see. I might end up ordering a replacement temperature sensor, even though it seems like the temperature sensor is working fine, but they can't be that damn expensive to swap one of those in there. There's not really nothing else other than the PCM or something, and oh God, I hope not. This thing's, I like the YXZ, but this thing's been a bit of a nightmare. But maybe it's just my Razor 800 has me spoiled, because that thing never lets me down. The most I had was this year out there at Hatfield McCoy, where it occasionally overheat, but then come to find out it was just that circuit breaker. I replaced that and it's been working totally fine since. So Mill Creek Lake didn't have an issue. Yeah. So other than that, it seems like it's working good. The injectors went in good. It is tight space, and taking the air box loose was just to gain a little bit of extra room in there to get in there. But yeah, it's a lot easier than ripping it out, because if you take that whole bed out, now your oil tank, man, I struggled with that oil tank hardcore. You almost got to rip all the side panels off and part of the cage off, and I ended up just, grabbing it, squeezing it, and flexing it. But now with those radiator hoses and everything going through there, you're going to pretty much struggle with all that stuff to try and do that. So I had a harder time getting it back in than I did taking it out, I'll tell you that much. Putting it back in took me probably 45 minutes and a bunch of cuss words when I did it before. So I wanted to spare everybody that. Anyways, look for a few more videos coming. I will be installing harnesses. I got some 3-inch harnesses coming. Should actually be in here a little bit later this week. I originally ordered Pro Armor, but then I got lost in shipping, so then I went through somebody else, and to be honest with you, I don't remember the brand I ordered now. But I ended up getting $100 for the pair, so I can get those stock. Like, almost impossible to adjust seat belts out of there. So I'll do a video of that and how the heck I hooked that up. I've seen some guys taking grinders and everything to their stuff to put them in. We're not going to do that. We're going to use spacers and some different bolts if that's what we got to do. But we're not grinding and cutting a bunch of stuff, I'll tell you that much. Yeah. At this point, that's all I got. And keep an eye out for a possible another Hatfield McCoy trip this fall. We're talking of maybe going down and doing another run. If not, I'm going to try to hit at least Land Between the Lakes, Turkey Bay, down at there there in Kentucky, right off the Illinois border. Worst case scenario, maybe you can just do a day run there before the season's gone. But I'll keep you posted. Quadzilla out.